Hi,
Hiya.
welcome. I'm just going to make sure we're streaming. Oops. Live on custom stream. Here we go. Here we go. Preparing to live stream. Let me let our first attendee in.
Yay.
Okay. So I think I know. Yeah. John, this is Frances.
Hi, Francis.
She's currently on mute. I'm not going to take her off mute, but she is more than welcome to. Francis was actually on one of my joint pain groups.
Oh, really? Oh,
With
wow.
nothing. Yeah.
Yes,
And you're still here. That's a great sign, Rachel.
absolutely. 2023.
Wow. Okay. Oh, brilliant. Wow. That's did you find that it helped?
Enormous help. I was very skeptical, I have to be honest.
Right.
And I've probably expressed it on more than one occasion.
Right.
But yeah, it worked. It was brilliant, absolutely
That's
brilliant.
so good. That's so good. Yeah, and Rachel's lovely. She's a good one. She knows what she's doing. Yeah, that's always helps.
I'll let you say the nice things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's why I'm here, isn't it? I think that's why I'm here. Sure.
Just to bolster my ego, sure.
Yes. I'm just gonna sit here and say yes.
Good idea. Okay, so thank you, Linda, as well for being here.
Sorry.
No, you're all right. So let me make a start. Let me do like a formal hello. So this is also live streaming on Facebook and LinkedIn. I've actually realised I haven't opened up any of the pages, so I don't know if anyone is joining us there. Maybe I will do that as we go. But if you are, please drop us a hello. Please tell us like how you're doing, what we're interrupting today. To Linda and Francis who are here with us live, if you have a question and you know how to use the chat box feature, you can drop your question in there, or just take yourself off mute and ask. It's very informal at this stage. But let me start this officially. So hi, and welcome to today's live session. I'm Rachel Tasker from Taskmaster Fitness, and I help people who want to feel stronger, more confident, and more in control of their health as they get older, especially if they've been told to just be careful, or, oh, this is just what you have to put up with now. Today's session is called GP says one thing, Google says another, and how to trust the next step. Because when you're dealing with ongoing pain, stiffness, or recovery challenges, it's not always clear who to listen to. Your GP, Google, that somewhat helpful neighbour down the road. This session isn't about handing you a one-size-fits-all answer, because frankly, there isn't one. It's about helping you feel less overwhelmed and more confident, taking your own next step, one that actually fits your life, your body, and your values. So before we get going, well, actually, we are going. This is just me reminding, saying, let's... if you're here watching live, please just drop us a hello. And as you can see, although we've got guests with us today, which is brilliant, we actually have a guest speaker. I am joined by Jon Chu, and I will say this on his behalf, who is a rehab specialist with over 20 years of experience in movement, massage, and recovery work. Jon runs a warm holistic clinic in Woking and also leads Nuffield's Health's long COVID rehabilitation programme. He started his career as a professional dancer and spent a decade teaching at Kingston University, helping others understand the body from the inside out. His approach is friendly, person-centered, and all about helping people move well, on their own terms. So, Jon, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that lovely intro. It's so hard to sit through that, isn't it? You kind of go, yeah.
Did I really do all those things?
Yeah. I've said to you before, like it really didn't feel that good. It didn't feel anything like as good as it sounds when you were doing it, you know.
Did you have a favourite thing from any of those years? Is there anything that you would?
I'm lucky enough to have lots of favourite things, I think. I think depending on my level of maturity, there are there are things, there are certain highlights, and there are things that should never be repeated in the public forum. But yeah, I think throughout all of it, I think it's all I've always been a teacher slash person who wants to help. So I think everything that allowed me to do that in some way, shape, or form, I think, yeah, it contributed. So, but yes, that's a tough question, actually. Yeah. Do you have something from your sort of vast sort of your vast bed of experience, because you've got a lot of experience yourself, like
Oh yeah.
Sorry to flip it on its head, but I'm curious.
No, it's okay. It's fair. I did ask you. You're allowed to ask me. I guess it's cemented that I love people. Warts and all, I love people. Like, you know, they can come and go. They can be in all different guises. I can meet them in all different ways. But I love being there with them. If I can help, if I can share a piece of advice, whether it's because I've got a marketing degree, see, so and when you get to the ripe old age of 43, the 19-year-olds look up at you and think that you're positively middle-aged. So sometimes it's surprising how much life experience you have or things that you can share that sometimes you don't know help at the time, but some way down the line they do. So yeah, anything I can do to help, really.
That's a good answer.
Thanks. So let's get into, we've got 3 takeaways today. The first one is called Why Conflicting Advice Feels So Overwhelming. And so the first thing to ask you, Jon, is what's something your clients often come to you confused about?
Yeah. So just to put this in context, it's an interesting one. There's so many things you can bring to the table, but I think for me, in the context of my private clients, who I see, so I'll see them sort of one-to-one in I've got a small clinic, and they'll come to me for clarity usually, because they'll see a GP, and a GP has 10 minutes to tell them everything they need to know about that ailment, but very few of the people that I see have just one thing going on. So the overarching commonality that I see is that people come to me with what is in terms of the textbook correct advice given this one particular ailment that they've seen their GP about, but it doesn't seem to be helping, or it doesn't seem to be quite right, or it might be something that they've kind of tried before and they're not convinced that it's going to work. And it's because in the context of everything else they've got going on, it's a multifactorial situation. So the singular fix that is often delineated in a 10-minute consultation with a GP, it's just not comprehensive enough for it to be effective. So I'll see somebody coming in, case in point of knees. I see loads of knees. People coming in with knee pain of some description, and in 10 minutes, there's only so much a GP can do to assess it, speak to them about sort of case histories, to make some sort of judgment about what their current situation is and how it was done, to get under the skin of what they need the need to do, and how they function in their day to day, and then to give them an appropriate course of response, or a course of treatment, which of course if it requires anything that lasts more than 5 minutes, they can't do. So more often than not, through no fault of their own, they'll say, here's some anti-inflammatories or here's some painkillers, you know, of various descriptions, you know, and a referral to a physio. And then the physios that they'll see are, sorry, this is turning into a really long-winded answer, sorry. Then the physios they'll see, because they're going to be sort of largely NHS referrals. A lot of the NHS referrals, a lot of the NHS physios are fresh graduates. So they'll go by textbook as well, because that's what they know. They don't necessarily have the work experience yet, the life experience yet, to know much beyond that. So then you often get given an A4 sheet of exercises to do for generic knee exercises that you can go home and do. And then unsurprisingly, it doesn't quite work very well. You know, whereas when they come and see me, if I spend an hour and a half with them, as opposed to 10 minutes, I can do all the testing, I can have a look, I can look at what else is going on, get them doing certain sort of like holistic movements, you know, get them to sit down, get them to stand up, stand on one leg, you know, sort of does that, like, you know, let's stress it, let's load it. And then, like, does that hurt? Do we change the angle of load, change the direction of the load? Let's have a look at that. And more often than not, it's rarely the knee. It's often either a hip issue that's impacting in the knee, or it's an ankle issue that's impacting into the knee. You know, sometimes it is the knee too, but I'd say it's about 50-50. So, and I see that a lot. And it's not to say that the GPs couldn't have done that if they'd had the time. They just don't have the time. So, which must be frustrating for them too, frankly. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, does that kind of answer the question? I hope it does.
Yeah. The only thing was, it was starting to answer the second question.
Was it? Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. That wasn't going
But
on.
it's okay. It's okay. So, but I think what you did actually, John, because I could see Francis nodding. I mean, you did that, but no, I think what, in seeing Francis nod, but also hearing what you said, I was like, that's exactly what people experience. That's what I hear when it's slightly different for me, because I see slightly different. I have a different skill set to you. I don't have that massage background to be able to be hands-on with people and help them that way. But certainly this general sense of feeling like leaving the GP. The number of times I've heard people say, oh, well, of course I got sent to physio and they just gave me a piece of paper with the exercises on. Which, having friends who are physios, is hard, because I think, oh, I know my friend has tried to do a really good job. But equally, I've got the person looking at me in front of me saying, not reading between the lines, they're saying, help me, help me figure this out. So yeah, I think that is probably where the confusion and the conflict happens. Everyone's trying to do their bit, but somehow it's just not, it's not working.
I should, at this point, sort of caveat what I said, because a lot of my friends and family are physios as well, and have done their rotations and things like that, you know. And I don't want to be disparaging about physios either, because they're amazing. You know, they're you know, I wish I had that sort of knowledge, but so much of their knowledge is clinical knowledge. It's not just musculoskeletal knowledge, which works within a clinical setting, and so they're factoring in so many things into the seemingly simple advice that they're giving, but they've taken account of this and this and this and this and this, you know, medical history, sort of like you know, what they've been prescribed, what the side effects of these sort of things, that they've got it all going on, and then they give the sheet of A4 paper that's appropriate. and the reason I'm saying this is because yeah, I'll try and keep it quick. When I was at Kingston, I was lecturing when I was new to lecturing. In my very first year, I was brought in because we thought in our slightly egotistical way that we could do a better job of what our predecessors had done. That the dance degrees at other universities were missing a trick, and we knew the trick, and in we went. And come on, we know what we're doing. Yeah, we did, but we thought we did, and you kind of have to start somewhere. So the very first module I taught was body conditioning because of my background. It was a body conditioning, sort of dance conditioning thing to try and give them the edge, physical edge over other dance graduates. We thought, we need a calling card here. Let's do that. So it was an 11-week module. Week 1, I did comprehensive testing of every single person in the room. I had to work so fast to get through everything. VO2 max testing, every single person. 30 people in the room. You got 1 hour. You're like, I'm not going to get this done in an hour. This is go. Okay, yeah, we've only got 2 treadmills. No, come on, so comprehensive testing, results for every single person. Then 9 weeks of physical training, conditioning every week. Every week I was saying to them, we're going to retest you at the end of the module, and we're going to see what's improved. And so we're chasing this improvements. Let's go. And they sort of like push. Every week, sort of like, okay, so like this would be really good if you keep working hard, because we've got to try and beat these original scores. That's the aim. Come week 11, right? We're retesting today. What? Like we're doing the retesting. The tests we did at the beginning. Yeah, we're doing them again today. Why? Well, because the whole point of the God, the whole room swore blind. I'd never said anything. Swore blind, and I honestly believe that physios have the same thing when they give the piece of paper. When they're given the piece of paper, they're clearly delineating. I guarantee they're clearly delineating what each of the exercises are, possibly what the justifications are, maybe an order, maybe an intensity, maybe sort of like a parameter for carrying these exercises out. But then the narrative that is given is, I just got given an A for piece of paper. And I think that's in all of us to some extent. I used to think blimmin' students, so useless. And then I realized that no, given the certain context, we're all the same.
Yeah, well, all those students presumably had their own lives that they were dealing with, and they were just turning up once a week and doing what they were told and going again. They probably lost the yeah. But I guess in us talking about it and sharing, I think it's just reinforcing that anyone who has been to a GP and been referred to a physio and then feels a little bit lost and estranged and maybe doesn't feel 100% cared for, that those feelings aren't they're not invalid. They're perfectly valid. It's perfectly human and okay that you feel that way. It's, well, but what do you do with that? What happens next? Is there an opportunity to speak to another professional? What friends do you have in your network that you can have a conversation with? Is your husband or your best friend able to just sit with you and just help you figure it out? Or you come and see someone like Jon or I, and we will spend the time with you, and we will listen, and we will figure it out in a way that it works in your life. Is not a problem. So I think this moves us on nicely to our takeaway number 2, which is what GPs are great at and what are they not. And I will start this by saying neither myself or Jon are GP haters. Like, we get there is a process to follow, and we're speaking from a place of, we're experienced of listening to both ends, the patient and the GP, and we're just able to speak in that space of the grey and the in between. So I guess, Jon, what is it that you find or you experience?
I think so. In terms of sorry, I'll just adjust this. In terms of GPs being great at things. There's a short answer and a long answer, as always, and the long answer is a bit verbose because I'm like that. So I'll start with the short answer. The short answer is they're great at medication. You know, they're limited by their practice and their local trust and everything else, all of the other sort of like influences on their practice as to what they can and can't prescribe. So they can only prescribe from a certain list, even if they think that a certain other medicine is better. But within that, they have a wonderful understanding of what does what and what side effects will go with that, and what can be mixed, what can't be mixed. That's a complete minefield already that they're having to navigate in real time with for the person in front of them, taking in within the 10-minute window, taking in their case history and what they've had before, and so they do that very well. I wouldn't want anybody. I wouldn't want anybody else doing that. What they may or may not be good at, but don't have the time to do, is the musculoskeletal stuff. It's very rare you'll see now a GP giving anyone a full physical examination. They haven't got time. They're not allowed to. Even if they're good at it, they're not allowed to. And so, I don't know if they are good at it or not. At this rate, I will probably never know. And even if they are good at it, they might be a bit rusty. So it's that's something that I feel is a grey area, and with that comes the fact that they're doctors, and to be a doctor in the first place means you have to just to get into train as a doctor, to get into medical school, you have to be top percentile intelligent person, and some of those people are some of the loveliest people I've ever met, and some of those people are some of the most arrogant people I've ever met. And depending on the luck of the draw, you may have somebody there who thinks they know everything, and you may have somebody there who acknowledges what they know and acknowledges what they don't know. And again, I don't know which it is, but there is the potential for that. But if a doctor says something, you tend to believe it because you believe, they're a doctor. Even if you or I, Rachel, would go, no, that's not right.
No, they're not going to listen to me, Jon.
But that's the thing, sort of like you and I have definitives, we can say definitively that's incorrect, actually, like with all due respect, that's incorrect. Whereas somebody who doesn't do that for a living doesn't have that ability to go, with all due respect, that's not correct. To a doctor, it's very difficult to say that to somebody of that standing.
When you're looking up to someone and you're regarding them as the oracle, because like me being a patient to my mum going into the doctors and being a patient is two very different people. Although she was a dental nurse and now she's a foot health specialist, so maybe she does advocate for herself for a bit. But yeah, it's because we have that I say it's a privilege. It's a learned thing through our industry that we're able to speak up on, or even just ask another question, like, oh really, is that what we think?
But it is a privileged place, you're right, sort of like we've been lucky enough to enter into this and to learn the things we learn.
Yeah. And actually, in our notes beforehand, Jon, there was something that you wanted to talk about on this point, which was staying in your lane versus who has clinical overview. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I did. Basically, sort of like, I wanted to mention it because this is something that happens a lot. People also come to me because they've been to see a gazillion specialists. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this now. They've been
Yeah.
to see a gazillion specialists. They've seen somebody for their respiratory issues. They've seen somebody who scan their lungs. They've seen somebody who's a throat expert. They've seen somebody who's an ear, nose, and sort of throat expert. That, you know, that they just want to breathe better. You know, sort of like who's right? Because they're all saying conflicting things. Been to the GP. GP's got 10 minutes to try and make sense of it. You know, if you're lucky, they will. But if you're not lucky and you don't have a GP who is totally hot on that and can actually figure it out in 10 minutes, you come away none the wiser. So who has clinical overview? Well, when I was growing up, we had more than 10 minutes with a GP. The GP had clinical overview. That was the point. General practitioner. They were the lifeline for all of us because they could pool all the information together. They knew you because they built a relationship up with you, getting to know you and seeing you sort of like, you know, various states of life. And they say, well, you know, for you, they're saying this and they're saying this, but we know that this is right for this and this isn't right, but this can be right in a certain situation and make sense of it for you. And the problem is that we don't have that anymore. We've got specialists who talk about their thing. It's sort of like people, to use the social media vernacular, people niche down now. So they and within medicine they always have, because it's so complicated. You've got to specialize in order to talk about it, you know, comprehensively. So, but who puts it together? Well, the general practitioners do, but they don't. Again, not necessarily, and this is not a criticism about their ability. I actually believe that they do have the ability. The vast majority, let's say, have the ability to, but they don't get to exercise it. And so failing that, who does have clinical overview of all the things? Who sees the bigger picture? And unfortunately, people are turning to Dr. Google. And Dr. Google will say, right, your finger hurts. You've got cancer. You know, and it's like, no, I've got a sore finger. You know, like that's not it. But you don't know. There's no culpability for what Dr. Google says because it's just a search engine. So, you know, it's not offering medical advice. And I don't know if you've tried talking to AI about clinical situations, because they always caveat their response with, well, I'm not a medical professional or something, you know, this is not, yeah, which is great. You know, sort of Google should be doing the same thing, but, you know, it doesn't have that intuition or that intuitive capability. So the thing is that people are staying in their lane. This is what I mean, sort of like cardiac specialists are talking about cardiac stuff. Knee specialists are talking about knees. Only when they're pushed for overview, when they're pushed or people ask, are desperate and they want to help, they're doctors. You know, they went into it for a reason. So when somebody asks them, but what does this mean overall? They'll take a stab in the dark. They will, because they're human and they want to help. And just like we will as well. But if they don't have a clinical understanding of all the other component parts, what they're saying may not necessarily be correct. And then what do you do? Because you don't feel you can contradict them because they're a doctor, and not only that, but possibly highly regarded in their field. You know, you can't say to one of the best knee consultants in the world, sorry, you're talking rubbish, buddy. You know, you can't do that. Only you can do that. We just won't do that. And unless you have some clinical overview yourself, it's very hard to know when to and when not to, or when to push forward and say, to question that, is that really correct because this XYZ. And this is where GPs, you know, the role of a GP is a difficult one, because the role currently doesn't fulfill some of the aspects that we need them to cover, and there's nobody else to do it. So more often than not, and Rachel, I know you'll have people come to you. I have people come to me all the time saying, "Can you make sense of this?" You know, because this doesn't make sense. My knee hurts and my back hurts. It's like, well, yeah, I can tell you from a musculoskeletal, you know, perspective, they're connected. Let me show you how. And you know, we can test it, and then they can get some definitive proof, and they go, oh, "You're a genius." Wonderful for my ego, great, but I'm not a genius. I'm just doing what the GP didn't have time to do. You know, and you know, if they had the skills, I don't know if they include that training anymore. I don't know. You know, yeah.
I've got some clarifying notes because I asked the NHS because I thought me and John were going to get into a whole world of trouble.
Yes.
Because it's easy to, and I think both of us respect the industry. We work in the industry.
Very much so. Yeah.
You know, completely. So the role of a GP, diagnosing common and chronic decisions. Sorry, I'm just reading for a list just to make sure I get it right. Identifying red flags and ruling out serious illness. Prescribing medications. Referring to specialists. Monitoring and reviewing care plans for ongoing conditions. Offering basic lifestyle advice. Which I think when you go through that, and anyone who has been to a GP, your GP will have done that. Absolutely. Yeah. And so what the GP is not typically able to do is long-term exercise coaching, in-depth lifestyle support, i.e. helping you with your motivation, changing lifestyle habits, that kind of softer, more fluffy stuff, which John and I would argue is the real stuff that's going to make the difference, but is often seen as the fluffier stuff. They are not typically able to deliver specialist MSK or strength building advice. That's where and why you get referred to a physiotherapist. If you were in the high-end sports world, you'd be sent to a strength and conditioning coach, or maybe not even that high-end, but
or both. Yeah,
or both. They are not typically able to track progress through functional outcomes like balancing on one leg and timing that, or posture stamina, which incidentally is something that we do in my Hit and Chat online class. And the current one is how long can you hold a high plank for? And we monitor it over 8 weeks, do various exercises, a bit like John described earlier, various exercises to help those muscles, help their high, and then measure it at the end of 8 weeks. So sometimes it doesn't always need to be that involved or that overly complicated or too clever. It can be relatively simple. And then the last thing they're not typically able to do is spend extended time on fears, beliefs, or confusion about an activity. And I think personally, my experience is that that's where people feel dismissed. But it is not, according to the NHS, it's not part of their role. They've actually done the really important things. So we're not here to argue the toss. It was just to highlight a point, and I was just sharing the definition for clarity's sake.
No, I think that's wonderful. There's a comment in the chat, by the way. I just yeah, I think somebody might be trying to get in.
Yes, let her in.
Cool. Yeah. So thank you.
So shall I move us on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I have got my own example actually, just quickly, and I'll say it quickly. For people who are in joint pain, because you did talk about knees earlier, there is this thing in your head, and I know people will accept when the GP says you need to keep moving, you need to keep exercising, and then a confusion happens because people, and I speak broadly, but the women who are in with me today, they can correct me if I'm wrong. Moving is often the thing that causes the most pain. So how can you move something that's painful? So how is that good advice to be given from the GP to tell you to move when moving is painful? That's partly why Nuffield Health has a joint pain program, and why I then work with people who have got joint pain, because yes, moving does help, but just walking to the shops and working in ways that is innately painful, and just pushing through that pain is not the way to go. But to find exercise and an intensity of exercise that enables you to be able to move a bit with not 100% pain, probably like 50 or 60% pain, to move with that. And then over a long term, like a minimum of 3 months, you will start to see an improvement in pain levels, range of movement at joints, and general things like getting about in life, walking the dog, playing with grandchildren, things start to get a bit easier.
But it's true, and it's really good. It's a really good program, actually.
Okay, so and it's not just exclusively to that program. Like, I can do it privately as well. It's not a problem. So takeaway number 3, though. So we need to crack on a bit. So how to trust your next step, and this is where, Jon, you wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, you were thinking of addressing how gestures and expressions are still movements and have their value as stepping stones to more dynamic stuff. What does that mean?
Well, good question. Well, yeah. So movement is movement. There's a saying, movement is medicine. Well, it can be, but medicine can be abused. Following on from what Rachel was talking about in terms of like painful joints, and then sort of having to move painful joints, even though moving is what hurts it. How do you approach that? Well, there's two sort of like things that I want to mention: tolerance and range of motion. So tolerance, as in sort of like how much pain can you handle without it being a bit much, and finding that boundary for yourself, and that is, you know, and that will vary from person to person and day to day. Until such a time as you've completely eradicated the problem and that actually it's all pain-free now. Great, brilliant. You know, if that's possible, it's not always possible, but you know, you want to get, that's the aim. Range of motion is the other thing. I'm going to use the finger because it's not very practical for me to get my knee up. But yeah, so that is about as much movement as this joint of my finger can do. Right, it can go back here and it can go forward. So that's full range of motion. Range of motion. That's painful. But yeah,
I'm just going by the wrist.
Yeah, look at that. That's very good. But see, so what if I was to move this much? That's still movement. That's still movement, but maybe that much is, I can move that much pain-free. Great starting point. So starting point. Now, this is where reframing is really important, because a lot of people think of exercise as how many reps, how many sets, what frequency, what intensity, all these sort of things, duration, time under tension, you know, all this stuff. No, with this, it's much more simple. How far can I move it pain-free? And what range of motion have I got within a tolerated level of pain? How much can I tolerate? Yeah, and this is personal. Now, I'm not saying come on, you know, come on, you know, it's really hurting yourself. Like, this really hurts. I can take it. I can take. No, just, you know, within reason. You know, how much can you tolerate, and then come in and out of it, and then sort of let's start with that. So now you, instead of working it, you kind of have to engage with the process of exploring it, playing with it. It's lighter touch than that, but it's not flaky. It's not a cop-out option. You're trying not to damage the area, but you're trying to explore and slowly build tolerance to movement, pain-free. So you're not building a pain association, because otherwise, if you're constantly going into pain, then even when it's fine, your brain will still have an associated pain referral with it, potentially, not always, but potentially, so that it's always painful for the rest of your life, even when people scan it and say there's nothing wrong with it, you know, which happens. So taking the knee, moving within pain-free or relatively pain-free range of motion, good starting point. Now, sort of consolidating that, so you know how far you can go, you know, sort of, you don't have to guess, you know pretty much where how much pain-free range of motion you got. Then potentially you could add a bit of load, gentle load. So Rachel will know this as well. Like everyone knows, you will start with something isometric to be safe. You'll start with a static contraction. So you'll push against something that doesn't move within that pain-free range. So you'll push against something that doesn't move, and applying more pressure, more tension. So the muscles are working. It's like holding a plank. You're working, but nothing's moving, so it's not hurting. And it's also safe. If it doesn't feel good, you just stop. And then you push the other way, use the opposing muscle groups and build that up. And eventually you work to that sort of strength throughout that full functional range of motion, pain-free, relatively pain-free, and then you extend it a little bit more. And then that week you're working to this range of motion, and then a couple of weeks' time you're working to this range of motion, and you build it up. Which is why Rachel's process and all the processes take time, because you can only go as fast as the body is prepared to go, and as quick as you can heal and adapt. But anybody can do that. Anybody can do that anywhere. You don't need a GP to prescribe that, because you know, even if you're not supposed, if they've told you you're not supposed to be doing vigorous exercise, that's not vigorous exercise. That's just moving. You'd move more getting up out of your seat and going to make a cup of tea. So you arguably are doing that anyway. So actually, why not do it in a concentrated way within an exercise sort of parameter to try and strengthen the area anyway? And this is where you know, a background of movement is interesting, because you know, movement is medicine is something that's bandied around a lot, but actually there's lots of different ways of moving. If you've ever seen sort of people who are physically impaired dancing, you know, I've seen people dancing with their eyes because they're quadriplegic, you know, sort of, and it was beautiful, it reduced me to tears, you know, sort of, and they were dancing with their eyes. It's movement, and I think broadening that definition of movement opens up a whole world of possibility in terms of what you can and can't do to be proactive about things.
Can I ask a question quickly?
Please do.
Just the experience I've had with before Rachel, this is with any kind of personal training thing, when you've, you know, had an operation or you've getting over an injury and you go to the gym and you ask for a program and or help devising one or continuing your physio, but you know, improving things a little bit like within your range. The experience I've had every other time is that at the time they give me the program or we work through things, I can do them all, no problem. They say, "Oh, marvelous, you're doing fun, you know, do 10 of these, or you know, do this." And then, you know, literally for the next 4 days, I can't sit on the toilet, I can't get up the stairs, you know, I can't put my trousers on because I can't bend. I'm in so much pain. And each time it's that you know, the last time before I saw Rachel, I remember saying to the person, I only give me stuff that I'll be able to do again tomorrow, or at least the day after. If I can't do it again for 7 days, because that's how long it takes me to recover, it's a complete waste of time. And I just get all, you know, thrilled that I can do it at the time, but then have all the pain afterwards, waking up in the middle of the night, gnawing pain in my hip, think, "Oh God, what have I done?" Then don't do anything for days. And it's that seesaw that made me in the end just stop doing anything more than what I definitely knew didn't hurt me or didn't harm me in the long run, or was potentially harming me in the long run. You know, I couldn't tell until way after the event that I'd overdone it.
Yeah.
And then when I had my hip replaced, I learned a lot more, because the people, the physio and whatever had said, you know, this is how many weeks it will take. Don't expect not to be able to, you know, to do this within this time. But the best thing you can do is do hydrotherapy, because you don't have to put the weight through it. Or, oh, thunder, whatever it is. So that was a much safer environment. But I think I can only speak for me, but from someone with joint pain in various parts of my body, hands, feet, ankles, knees, hips, but want to stay, and I'm told to stay as fit as I can and stay mobile. It's a very difficult balance when you're not feeling confident. So to do it with someone like Rachel, to do it through that, the group work we did, I mentioned last week that the progress between the beginning and the end was I had to take the lift upstairs, and by the end I could walk up 3 flights of stairs consecutively, not both feet on one step. I could actually go right, left, which I hadn't done for about 5 years. So, amazing. But it's that losing the confidence then if you're not doing that course or you're not going regularly. Like I had life events that meant I wasn't able to start going back to that. You're quite nervous and you're quite frightened, and the doctor said stay as mobile as possible, but you're on the list. That, kind of him and the specialist, but it doesn't really tell you what to do. And like being said, don't do anything for a week till you've recovered. And you kind of go, what do you mean don't do anything? What does anything mean? What, not walk the dog or not climb the stairs or rest longer? I mean, that was one of the things we learned with Rachel about resting and recovery and stuff. So it's just these things get talk to you, and I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm still feeling that I still wouldn't really know without coming to you to get the skeletal stuff, then without going to personal trainer like Rachel who understands about that, and then finding someone to go and do it. That's quite a lot of commitment and drive from the patient, when it's easy to go, do you know what, I'll just carry on walking the dog and hope for the best, so that's my little 2 penneth.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. But this is so. Can I speak to that? Have we got time?
Yeah, we'll make time. We've currently been going for 45 minutes. Is that okay with you? I will definitely stop us by the time we get to 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I think that's fine by me if that's okay with you. Okay. Thank you for a start, because that's a brilliant sort of example and sort of like sort of case of things that can be problematic. And you're right, it does happen all the time. And in the same breath that we're saying that we are not criticizing GPs in any way, shape or form, on the flip side, there's a responsibility of people delineating programs for people as well, to take into account all the things that we're asking GPs to take into account too. Obviously not necessarily sort of in terms of medicines being prescribed, but in terms of movement history, what's possible, what's not, what you've had done, and knowing appropriate action from that point. So for instance, you having a program, you can do it fine there, and then you're debilitated for a few days afterwards. You'll see a version of that amongst people who are pumping iron in the gym, when they push really hard and they get DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness or muscle stiffness. So sort of they're fine the next day, and then it's the day after that when they start getting really sore. It's an indicator of intensity. It's an indicator that what you did initially, you got through it because you could step it up to get through it. But that sort of level of performance and intensity was too much for you at that moment in time to not be debilitated as your body was trying to rebuild itself and recover from it. So the argument is that yes, you're quite right, that you needed to do something less intensive, arguably, so that you could do it again the next day. But depending on what you're from an exercise prescription sort of standpoint, is that appropriate? Not always. It's appropriate for somebody that's trying to work on something consistently, but if it's if it's something that requires daily mobilization, then yes, you don't want to go too hard, because you want them to be able to work on it every day, like a hip, for instance. So the hip rehabilitation, painful, but you have to be able to do it every day, because otherwise it seizes up and it gets stiff and you get all sorts of complications. So you need something that's intense enough to work, but then to stop there, because otherwise you're not going to be able to go again. Whereas, there are certain other situations, let's say, that where the other approach, where you go a bit harder, is more appropriate. In your instance, arguably they didn't quite get it right. It's a difficult thing, because there's some guesswork involved unless they know you. But then also, I should also say that recovery, you'll know yourself. Anybody that's ever recovered from anything, it's not linear. People say it's linear, X and Y equals Z. This step, then that step, then this step, and you're there. No, it's like this. There, it's and it always is, because it's multifactorial. It's not just a hip, and it's never just a knee. It's what else you have to do during the day. It's who's relying on you. It's whether or not you have to do the shopping or the laundry or the everything else. It's how many times a day you're up and down. It's how bad it was in the first place. It's how strong you were before you got injured. How strong are you now? Sort of, it's different every time. And unless you're aware of all those things, then it's very difficult to say anything definitively. What I would say is that a lot of exercise professionals, and this is advice I would give to anybody who's recovering from an injury, is that a lot of exercise professionals tend to move things forwards quite quickly. Tend to incrementally increase your workload or whatever fairly rapidly. And sometimes when you're injured, actually you need it slightly more incremental than that. So a common thing you'll hear people say, right, we're going to go harder and faster. Yeah, well, actually, if you're recovering from an injury, go harder or faster. Don't do both. That'll be a step too far. You're going to hurt badly. Sort of that arguably be debilitated. So if change the tempo, sure, that's one variable. Change one variable, and then sit with it until your body's had a chance to acclimatize to it. Change the tempo, change the duration, how long you're doing it for, change the rhythm that you're doing it in order to make it slightly harder or easier. Sort of change the speed, so maybe you can have some inertia or no inertia, momentum, no momentum. Change the range of motion, doing, like we said before, smaller, easier, bigger, harder. Change the workload, how much weight and resistance you're applying. So one variable, change one. If you're not sure, just change one, and then leave it there until you adapt.
And also, just to add that it is, well, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if this is right, but it's okay to repeat the week exactly the same as the one before. When you're in injury, when you're in recovery, when you've got a physical ailment that's stopping your life, if you did 1 week and it worked out well for you, repeat that week. And then, like Jon said, change that one variable. An example I get from people, some people say to me, oh, I really want to start running. I'm going to do the couch to 5K. On one hand, great, go ahead. On the other hand, I say it nicely. I'm not going to say it quite so nicely now, but I do say it nicely when I'm actually speaking to someone. I'm like, please repeat every single week. If you have never run in your life, or it has been 5 years since you last run and you're using Couch to 5K to help you, and this can be the same for any exercise program that you're given. And, if you're given a weight program, it's essentially the same advice, is repeat the week, because your body needs time to adjust. Couch to 5K, and I've heard physios who are sort of running specialists speak about this before, Couch to 5K meets our human need to achieve our goal quickly. So it will take you from Couch to 5K in the shortest available time. Doesn't mean to say you have to do it in that amount of time. You can do it in double that amount of time. That is fine. Your body will fully appreciate it and will love you for it, and will give you so much more back to you than if you try and rush it through.
In fact, I'd recommend taking more time if you're coming back from an injury or anything, or any rehabilitating in any way, shape, or form. Take extra time, because you're more prone to breaking. And also the Couch to 5K, yeah, 100% sort of repeat every week. But also the Couch to 5K, somewhere sort of along the way, there's a bit of a jump in progression. It's not a linear progression. It kind of goes here and it kind of goes whoop there, and then people tend to break around there. So if it feels a bit much, it might be a bit much. Maybe scale that back. You don't have to do what they're saying. It's just a voice on a recording. Just saying.
Yes. Okay. So I think we've covered that.
Yeah.
Quite fully and extensively. Thank you, Linda, for adding in, because I think what you added was really valuable, and I think other people will really relate to what you said and relate to your experience. So thank you for sharing. It is always good to share. I did have a last concept that I was going to share, but I don't know if it's really, doesn't really answer. I don't know if it really adds value. I'll say it quickly. So it's called the 4 C's. And you might think that you need to start a new topic or a new hobby or a new something when you have confidence. It's actually the last thing you need. So if anyone listening to this is unsure or uncertain about starting something new, and I guess this works for you, Linda, if you're unsure, the first thing to do is to commit. Is to pick something and commit to it. You've already done that once because you committed to the joint pain program. You could commit to coming to my hit and chat class. You could commit to a phone call with Jon to talk about things. Whatever it is, first of all, commit. The second C is courage. So whatever plan you've set for yourself, have courage to see it through. And then after courage becomes capability. We will become more capable at the skill. Linda, you would become more capable at knowing what your body can and can't tolerate, to what intensity and how slow you need to be. And then the fourth thing is confidence, because you then feel confident about that and what you've been doing. And then when the next thing comes along, you can go, oh, do you know what? I'm going to commit to this. Because I know I know I've got courage. I know I'm going to gain capability, and then I will have confidence. How's that?
Yay. That's very nice.
I was sharing that with Jon because I told him I was going to, and he was like, oh, I'm interested to what that will be.
I didn't know
There
what the C's were. This is great. Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good point actually, that sort of knowing when to start, sort of because I'm as guilty as the next person of waiting till I feel confident in order to start something, and sort of like trying to do the homework before, not doing it, avoiding it by cleverly doing the homework for it, in order to build the confidence, which ultimately doesn't work. And I've just delayed cracking on with it. Yeah, definitely guilty of that one. Oh, no, thank you. That was great.
Fab. Right. Well, thank you very much, Jon, for taking the time out of your day to come and talk to us. It's really good to hear another professional talking about it, because I don't know that there's enough mainstream information for people to easily access. I'll just check in with Francis and Linda. Have you got any questions? Is there anything you want to say or add?
I would actually. Is there not, going back to point 1 about the GPs, etc., is there not a case for highlighting a particular thing if you feel that the GP has perhaps overlooked something, or in that 10 minutes when they're trying to do an evaluation, they've not really taken a particular thing into consideration? I do think sometimes they, as you said, they're trying to find the right medication. They're trying to take in to assimilate a lot of information, but they may not have put particular importance to one particular thing. So therefore, there's an onus on the individual to also put your hand up, as it were, and say, I know it's in my records, but da 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 da. I just wonder whether that's something we should be doing a bit more. And I know that I've been reticent in the past because they're the health professional. They've got everything in front of them. They've got their computers, with all the information on. But experience to me suggests that actually that would be helpful. That would be beneficial.
Can I jump in? Is that
yeah?
Because Francis, thank you. That's a really good question, and actually, it is something that we should address, because yes, only you know your body, and if you do, and I know from first-hand experience that if you highlight something to a GP, they will take it into consideration. In fact, they'll be very grateful for the steer. So it's absolutely important, and this goes back to the confidence thing as well. You know, it's almost not worth you know, having a conversation about whether or not you're confident enough to say something. No, you have to say something. You know, it's a given. You have to give them a steer. If you think there's something going on with X, Y, Z, and that maybe that ties things, or you're concerned about something, you have to say something so that they can address that straight away, quick, sharp, because they will appreciate the steer, especially if you've got a long case history where you've had a number of things ongoing. They really could do with a fast track to home in on the most important things. So yeah, 100% say it. And I will also say at this point, for the longest time, I've seen so many people who are worried about the language they use when they say it. Don't worry about it, just say it any which way you can. You don't have to use medical vernacular to impress them or to make them take you seriously. No. If anything, that tends to backfire. In the past, when I've talked anatomy with GPs, they've usually said something like, "Oh, are you medical?" And at which point I've gone, technically no, and then I've been shut down. Whereas if I just talked like a normal human being, they would have actually listened to my point. So yeah, just say it. Do say it, and that is incredibly important. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
This isn't what Francis asked, but the thing that I would add to that, Francis, is if someone isn't, if they get in those moments in front of the GP and they lose their mind, because I have done it, and they go, "So is everything all right then?" And you go, "Yeah."
Oh yeah.
And it's not. So this is my tip, is before you go to the appointment, especially if it's an important one to you and you really do want to get to the bottom of it, is write the things down. Sometimes I write down like the timeline, like if this is random, this isn't to do with joint pain, but if I've had a bite, and I know that for me, bites can get infected, so I will draw round the bite. I will write down the day that it happened, how many hours it's been, what have I tried. Write all that down, so when you go into the appointment, you're like, this is what I have done, this is how long it's been going on for, this is what I've tried, da, da, da. So that when you sit there and you inevitably clam up, or the questions that you have, like, well, what does this mean? What does it mean if that happens? Da, da, da. Write those questions beforehand, so when you go blank and they ask you if you've got any questions, you go, hang on a minute. And then you ask the thing that you've forgotten. It's totally okay. They will fully respect you for it. You won't look like a plonker, and you will get the help and the support that you absolutely deserve.
And sorry to just jump in, but also the very last thing from me, if you haven't asked the question and it's time, you've had your 10 minutes, don't worry about it. Ask the question anyway. They can tell you they're out of time, and they're good at it. It's fine. They will tell you if they're out of time. Ask the question anyway, because you'll kick yourself for not asking. So whilst you're there, and it's so hard to get a GP appointment in so many places right now, so once you've got the GP appointment, ask the question. Just ask it. You know, the worst they can say is, sorry, we're out of time, or sorry, I can't answer that right now. At least you asked, you know. Yeah,
it's true. Right, well, I'm gonna wrap it up for all of us, if that's okay. It might be that we get Jon back another time, because I dare say this has been useful. It's been good for me and Jon as well. So yes, I shall say goodbye to you all. Jon, if you want to just stay on and we'll wrap up, that would be great. But otherwise, I shall say goodbye to everyone. If you were listening to the live stream, I hope it was good. Nice to see you guys showing up, and
thanks for having me on. Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Nice meeting you. Bye.